Hey sinners, I'm Megan.
And I'm Lindsay, and this is Sinners Among Saints.
Welcome back, guys. Another week. Hopefully the sound's a little better this week. We're trying.
We have put in some work on our sound this week.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful it makes a difference.
You have no idea unless you've done something like this, like how ridiculous some stuff can be. Like simple things that you just would think would work and they don't. So
It's like all the behind the scenes stuff that you listen to people and you don't realize how much goes into it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. We've spent so much time trying to get like the sound right and the microphones right, and I feel hopefully every week it's a little better. I hope.
Yeah, we did order some sound panels, like some soundproofing panels that we're gonna put up sometime this week before next week. They just weren't here yet.
Yeah. So hopefully, like I said, every week hopefully it sounds a little better. And we appreciate everyone sticking around and coming back and giving us a chance because it definitely is not easy. So, I know last week we talked about The Sins of Our Mother, the Lori Vallow Netflix show.
To watch it?
So I watched it, and I mean, it was interesting, like you had said, that, you know, we watched it as it unfolded. So you get like the little bits here and the little bits here, and you're just like listening as it keeps going on, and you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. But when you sit and watch all of it, like in one sitting, you're just blown away by everything. I feel like
how freaking crazy she is.
Yeah, I feel like everything, I was just like, oh my God, like what is wrong with her?
Yeah.
Like her poor son, he is just like the cutest, like he just seems like such a sweet, nice, normal, like
Colby, I think
his
name is.
Like a normal person.
Yeah. And his wife is so cute, and their daughter's so cute, and
and I mean, if you haven't watched it, I guess like don't listen to this part, but just, you know, after, I mean, she's already been arrested, they've found the bodies of her children on her husband's property. And I'm not sure, like, if she called Colby or if he called her in jail or whatever, but so just the way she talks, you know, just, like, so bubbly, like, hey, Bubba, like, how are you? Like, are you doing good? And he's just like, no, you freaking psycho. No.
You just killed my siblings,
Like,
so
what are you talking about?
Not okay at all.
Yeah, and she just, you know, like, yeah, she just, you know, someday you'll see, someday you'll understand. Like, okay. All right, crazy pants.
And then the part where she says something like, well, I don't know what you think I've done. We know what you did, you crazy bitch.
Yeah, and every time they would show Chad Daybell, I was like, he is such a goober, and he has the most bulbous chin in the world. Like, I don't know what is happening there. I could not stop looking at it. Like, every time his face would come on, I was like, oh my God, I hate his chin so much.
It seriously reminded me of the movie Coneheads, but like out his chin instead.
Yes, and when he like walks, his head's like in front of his body, and he's just like I just don't even. Oh, I can't even. And yeah, and like they just announced, I think today, that they're not gonna allow cameras or public in the courtroom, and I'm so upset.
I know, you told me that, and I was like, oh no.
I really, really wanted to I want to see her on the stand. I want to see, I just want to see it all because she's crazy. But I get why they don't do it. I understand, but I still want to watch it.
I don't get it. Just bring back the cameras.
Right?
We have a right to see this shit.
I watched the OJ verdict in class.
Yeah.
In 6th grade.
It was in, 3rd grade.
No, 6th grade. 1996.
No.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I swear, maybe it was just because it drug on so long.
Listen, I
swear,
remember.
I remember watching that, though.
I remember my life based on what school I was in and what house I lived in, because we moved like every year, so. I was in Mrs. Miller's classroom in 6th grade, and we watched the verdict, and it was not guilty, and it was so fun to watch, and now I'm like, I wish I got to do that with this case.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Do you remember in 6th grade we were in opposite classes?
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd go meet at the bathrooms?
Yeah.
Because that's like the only place that our class shared.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
We had to pee a lot that year.
Teachers are like, I think they have UTIs. What's happening?
Or IBS. Who knows?
Yeah.
Because we were there for quite a while also. But
These kids go to the bathroom a lot. That was back in the day where like they just didn't care.
No, you
I
just
felt
got
like,
up and went. You didn't have to have a pass or
yeah,
anything.
kids nowadays, it's like, can I please go to the bathroom? Like, it's like they have to beg for it. Our teachers are like, yes, please leave for a minute.
Please leave. I do not want you here, actually.
I could use a break, so.
Yeah. Cruz's class actually does that too. They just have to sign out. Like, they don't have to ask or raise their hand. They just sign out. And he was so pissed this week because they had a substitute in one of his classes, and she made them ask. And then she created like her own little hall pass and made them carry it.
Who does
and then
that?
timed them in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think Lily had that last year where it was like timed, but the school she went to had like the absolute worst 6th grade ever, and there was kids that got caught smoking pot in the bathroom. So they got they had a lot of privileges taken away, but she would get so mad because she's like, I wasn't the one smoking pot. Like, I have to go to the bathroom.
Like a couple of those pot smokers ruin it for everyone.
Right? She's like, I feel all like uncomfortable. I'm like rushed in the bathroom and
like, can I really sing the ABCs while I wash my hands?
Right? Yeah.
Probably not.
I couldn't even wash my hands for a full 20 seconds.
I love it.
All right.
So I guess we'll just jump into the case this week.
Yeah, I'm so excited. This one like is a huge case here in Utah.
Huge.
But like it's been so long and I don't know like all the details, so I'm super excited.
Yeah. So this was before our time, so we've just kind of heard bits and pieces growing up here. And a lot of people have heard this one. It's like it's pretty infamous in Utah.
I think so.
Due to its like absolute brutality.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're talking about the Hi-Fi murders in Ogden, Utah. April 22nd, 1974 started out like a pretty normal day for 16-year-old Courtney Naisbitt.
I am Mrs. Naisbitt.
I did the exact same thing as soon as I read this, and that is hysterical. And I read a book, which I'll get to later on, and every time he said it, I said that in my head and just would giggle.
It is my favorite part of Toy Story, like, by far my most favorite part. Because he's, like, mentally lost it, and
So I say that last name in this case a lot, and so I literally would just giggle to myself, and, like, it was so dumb. But
I will try to pull myself together, but no.
Keep it together, please.
No guarantee.
Because, like, we can't digress every time I say that name, or we'll be here literally all night.
I wish we knew how to work our soundboard, and I would do a slap noise every time that would come on because it makes my heart happy.
Yeah, you guys, we do have a soundboard, and we have only like 8 sounds on here, but we can't figure out how to get it to actually go into our podcast. So if any of you know how to do that, please let us know.
Yeah, I feel like we're just like old or something. I don't know.
And neither of us are very technical. So it's
everything.
like explaining your grandma how to work the computer sometimes with us.
Yeah.
And so we are not very technical.
I honestly don't know what people did before Google, because I've Googled so many things, like even just words on the mixer, and like, what does that mean? Like, Google it, 'cause I'm like, I don't know what that means. So, anyway.
Okay, so Courtney Naisbitt went to his high school classes, and after finishing up for the day, he went to a pilot class where he was learning to fly small planes.
Oh.
Okay, so he's a sophomore in high school, you guys, and he's learning to be a pilot. This kid was amazing. So ever since he was a little boy, he dreamed of being an aerospace engineer and loved to be around planes. So at flight school that day, they were at the Ogden, Utah airport, and they went up with you as usual. So with like his instructors and the passenger seat, and he flies the plane, but the instructor's with him the whole time. And they made a few passes, and then to his surprise, as they landed the plane, the flight instructor told him to stay inside because he was going to do his first solo flight.
Wow.
And Courtney had been waiting for this for a really long time. It's like a huge, huge milestone. Yeah. He was so excited. So he does all of his gear checks, takes the plane up alone, and then he makes 3 passes where they basically like make a loop, and then they briefly touch down so the wheels touch on the landing strip.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then they go back up. So he lands the plane. He's able to fly the plane and land it without any incident. And this quickly becomes like literally the best day of his life.
Oh, I'm sure.
So before leaving, his flight instructor pulls him into this small office and cuts off one of his shirt tails. And this is like a celebratory ritual that's performed after your first solo flight. And they like pin it up to the wall with a little plaque with your name and the date to commemorate the event.
Aww.
And so Courtney's super excited to get home, tell his parents, and just talk to him about this milestone that he just achieved. And he's getting ready to walk out. So he's supposed to head home, grab dinner really quick, and then he has to go to Weber State University for ground school, which is like the actual coursework where they learn how to fly.
This is like legit.
Yeah, and his class starts at 7.
Okay.
So on his way out to his car, the instructor calls him back and says he has a phone call. And it's his older brother, Gary, calling from his parents' house. And Gary asks Courtney if on his way home, he can stop and pick up some pictures that have been developed of his parents' recent trip. And I think they said it was from Africa. So they'd gone on this trip, and, you know, at that time, you had to go drop your film off and wait a couple days. It wasn't any of this, like, print it from your computer or anything like that.
And then get your developed film and be like, shit, my finger was over the camera every time.
Yeah, exactly. And so Courtney's kind of hesitant because he didn't think he'd have time to pick up the pictures, get home to dinner, and then make it to his class. But with a little coaxing from his older brother, he finally agrees. So he gets in his car, drives to the Hi-Fi shop in Ogden, Utah, which this is like an electronics and stereo equipment store.
That's what I thought.
It's actually still around, not this particular one, but they still have them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's located near the film shop, and his good friend Stanley works there. And so he parks in the parking lot, runs into the shop really quick, and asks Stan if he can park his car there while he goes and picks up the film. Stan's like, sure, go ahead. So Courtney leaves. He picks up the film, and then on his way back to his car, he runs into an old childhood friend that, like, they used to be neighbors.
Okay.
And chats with her for a few minutes, tells her about his solo flight.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just, like, super excited.
Oh.
And so then he heads back to the shop to say thank you to Stan for letting him park his car there. And at this time, it's just after the shop closes, like right after 6 p.m. So Stanley Walker, his friend, is a 20-year-old kid that's working that day with 18-year-old Michelle Ansley. And Michelle's actually only been there for about a week, so she's just like the front desk girl. And when Courtney walks in, he sees Stan standing against the wall, just kind of looking afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And then he notices that 2 other men are also in the shop, and both of them have guns. One man is holding the gun like pointed at Stan, and as soon as he hears Courtney come in, he quickly turns and points the gun at Courtney and tells him to come over here.
Mm-hmm.
So this man is a black man, and he's about 5'5", with a stocky, muscular build, and he forces the 2 boys down to the basement at gunpoint, where Michelle had already been taken. And they're all tied up with these electric cables that were left, and then they just leave them in the basement. And so he ties them up, goes back upstairs, and the 3 kids keep hearing footsteps back and forth in the shop as the men carried items out of the shop. So they're basically robbing the store while these hostages are downstairs. And in the meantime, Courtney's mom, Carol, starts to get really worried when Courtney doesn't show up to the house for dinner. So her husband and son, Gary, try to convince her that nothing's wrong and that Court probably just got caught up talking to his friends at Hi-Fi. and that he just probably lost track of time.
Yeah.
But her mother's intuition is like, nope, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, so she starts calling Courtney's friends, and nobody's heard from him. She calls the shop and nobody answers. She's like, no, something's not right here.
Yeah.
So she gets in her car and just decides to go look for him. Like, drive around and look for him. And her husband is the local OBGYN, and he was on call. So he has to stay close to his phone line, because at that time they don't even have pagers yet. So if somebody like goes into labor or whatever, he has to be at home.
Because this is the late 70s, right?
1974.
Okay. All right.
And so he has to stay there, so she just goes by herself. So she drives to Weber State first, because Courtney at this time is supposed to be in class. And so she drives through the parking lot, and his car isn't where he would normally park it. So she parks and goes into his classroom, and immediately becomes like super worried because he's not there.
Yeah.
So she gets back in her car, drives down to the hi-fi shop where she sees Court's car in the parking lot. So at this point, it's like after 7 p.m. They say it's close to like 7:30. And this seems really odd to her because the shop closes at 6. So everybody's usually like gone at this point. So she parks her station wagon next to Courtney's car and heads inside. And so she's immediately met by the men. Sorry, I can't talk. I don't know what's going on. Who are like, what are you doing here, lady?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm looking for my son. I'm worried about him. This is the last place he was. His car's still out there. And Courtney, who's in the basement, can hear his mom's voice, and his heart just like sinks because now he knows that she's here and is going to be involved in this.
Yeah.
So the men take Carol downstairs with the other hostages, and they tie her up as well, and then head back up and continue to rob the store.
Oh my gosh.
So shortly after Carol arrives, another worried parent, Stan's father, Orren Walker, shows up at the shop to check on his son who hadn't come home yet, which is, again, super abnormal for him.
Yeah.
He, too, was taken at gunpoint down to the basement and tied up. And there were actually 6 men total who were robbing the store. I guess 2 were driving 2 separate vans, and then 4 men were like inside moving the equipment and loading the vans out. So the men continued to rob the store, but 2 of the men come down into the basement to stay with the hostages. And one man was the one I already talked to you about, the short, kind of stocky black man, and his name is Dale Pierre. And the other man is a much taller, more athletic build. He's also black, and his name is William Andrews. So at this time, the 2 men pull out this brown paper bag, and it looks like an alcohol bag. Like when you go to the liquor store and pick up a bottle and you have to carry it out in the brown paper bag. So that's what it looks like. And they start pouring this liquid into a plastic cup. And Carol's like, excuse me, what is that? And the men are like, oh, don't worry, it's just some vodka and some sleeping pills. And we've crushed the sleeping pills up, we've added the vodka, we're just going to have you drink it and you'll fall asleep. And then when you wake up, we'll be gone and you'll be free to go. Okay. And she's very LDS, and she's adamant, refuses to drink the liquid because she does not drink alcohol. Yeah. She's like, no, I'm not drinking it. So Pierre and Andrews try and make Orren administer the liquid to the others, but he refuses. He's like, nope, I'm not doing this. So they actually gag him and place him face down on the floor.
Oh, jeez.
So then Pierre props up the other hostages into a sitting position, and starting with Carol and Courtney, Pierre forces the liquid down their throats. So he props open their mouth, pours the liquid in. And immediately, when the 2 swallow this liquid, they begin to cough and scream in agony, as their mouths instantly begin to burn and blister.
I know what it is, yeah.
And the liquid starts to kind of run out of their mouth, and it says that immediately blisters begin to form, and the flesh around their lips begins to actually peel off.
Oh my god!
And the blisters, because when you have a blister, it blisters up, and then maybe will take some time to pop and ooze. These start to just ooze all this stuff immediately. And They're just crying out, coughing. So then Pierre takes the cup back to Andrews, who fills it up again, and he goes over to Michelle and Stan and forces them to drink. So they have very similar reactions, but Pierre notices that Michelle doesn't cough quite as much. So he's like, she's not drinking it. They're not getting enough fluid down. So he tries to duct tape their mouths shut, like pour some more liquid in, tries to close their mouth and duct tape it, but the tape won't even stick because of all the oozing blisters.
I was going to say, like, how are you going to tape over, like, sloughing skin?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, he cannot get it to stick.
Gross.
So he then pulls Orren up and forces the liquid into his mouth. But Orren, kind of seeing how the others had reacted, doesn't let the liquid go down his throat, but lets it like fall out of his mouth. And then he fakes coughing and making similar noises that he had heard the others make. A few minutes later, the 4 victims who had drank the liquid begin kind of like convulsing, like having seizures.
Oh my God.
And Orren also fakes similar reactions and then just lies on the ground still, like just pretending that he's just, like passed out, like kind of like the others.
Yeah.
So Pierre can see that the liquid hasn't killed the hostages. And he feels like it's taking too long for them to die and that they're making way too much noise. So this makes him very, very angry.
Of course.
So he tells Andrew, like, listen, we need to take care of these guys so we can get out of here. Like, we can't leave hostages alive. They've seen our faces. We got to take care of them. And Andrew tells him, I don't think I can do it. Like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
Yeah.
And the hostages are all laying down on the ground, face down, still bound, and without any hesitation, Pierre walks up behind them, puts a gun to the back of to the back of Carol's head, and pulls the trigger execution style.
Oh no.
So Courtney, who's lying right next to his mom, starts begging for his life. And literally saying, like, I'm too young to die, please don't kill me. But Pierre doesn't even hesitate and shoots him in the back of the head as well. He then points the gun at Orren, who's kind of across the room, and pulls the trigger, but he misses and the bullet goes into the wall. He then walks over to Stan and shoots him in the head, and then shoots Orren again. This time, the bullet grazes the back of his head, but the shot still doesn't kill him. Michelle, seeing, she's the last one who hasn't been shot, also starts begging for her life, saying, please don't kill me, I'll do anything. And at this point, some reports say that Pierre asks Andrew to give him like 30 minutes, and Andrews goes upstairs. And in other reports, it says that Andrews just kind of like goes off into the corner. And just stands there and watches what happens next from the corner of the room, but doesn't go upstairs. So, not really sure which one is true. Pierre grabs Michelle and takes her into like an adjoining room in the basement and forces her to undress completely naked other than her socks. He then...
It's always a good look.
I know. He then, like, brutally and repeatedly rapes Michelle for the next 20 minutes. After he's finally done, he leads her back into the other room where he had just shot the other 4 hostages. And she's still naked except she has white socks on. And she's like, listen, I really need to use the bathroom. Can I please go pee?
Yeah. And
so he agrees and walks her, like, across the bodies to the other side of the room where the bathroom is. And then he just stands in the doorway like a total creeper and watches her pee.
Gross.
Which is, like, so humiliating.
It really is.
Like, and, like, you're sitting in front of someone you don't know, completely naked.
Where are you going to go? You're in the basement.
Yeah.
Of, like...
And you have to pee. And, like, he won't even give you any privacy.
No. But, I mean, not like he cares about your humanity. So.
No. He just, like, wants to humiliate her even further.
Yeah.
So... when she finishes, he walks back to the other victims and tells her to lay down on her stomach. And at this point, she starts to cry. and continues to just beg for her life and is like, please don't kill me. She also says, I'm too young to die. I'll do anything. And Pierre just doesn't care, makes her lay down and shoots her in the back of the head, and this kills her instantly.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that they killed so many people, like, right away.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
So, I mean, it ends up being, like, over the course of, like, an hour that this is occurring.
Okay.
So, none of it's super quick.
Yeah.
And so after he shoots Michelle, he goes over to Stan and realizes, because he's already shot Stan.
Yeah.
Stan's not dead. So the shot did not kill him.
Mm.
So he sees that he's still breathing and shoots him again in the head.
Jeez.
And Orren later recalls, and that's his dad laying right next to him, that at that point he knew his son was dead because he could just see him stop breathing.
Yeah.
So Pierre then walks over to Orren, and he's still pretending to be dead. He's like trying to control his breathing.
Yeah.
And just lay super, super still, not open his eyes. But Pierre grabs his neck and like starts checking for a pulse.
Oh, yeah.
And when he realizes that Orren's still alive, he grabs a wire and starts to wrap it around Orren's neck and chokes him.
Oh.
But Orren, being like so smart, I don't know that I would ever think of this.
Yeah.
But he's so smart and he's like this total badass. He flexes his neck muscles. So I was doing this as I'm like, so if you like kind of put pressure on your throat and then flex your neck muscles while you're doing it, and it allows you to be able to get some air in.
Yeah, you become like one of those lizards.
Yeah, exactly. So he doesn't die. This does not kill him. And so just like another little life lesson. If anyone's trying to strangle you, flex the crap out of your neck muscles as hard as you can. Because it makes you so that you can still get a little bit of air in there.
And not only that, but like the face you have to make to flex your neck muscles, it's sure to scare them.
No, it was funny because I was doing this in the mirror as I'm reading the story. And you know how they always say you can tell the age of someone by their neck?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, no, that's not a good look. But anyways.
Anyway.
I digress. So Pierre starts to get like super frustrated because this man like won't die. Like he's literally been drinking some caustic liquid. Yeah. He's shot in the head.
Yeah.
He attempted to strangle him, and he's just not dying. So Pierre goes upstairs, and Orren's like, oh, thank God, this nightmare's finally over. Maybe I fooled him. But then his heart drops as he hears the footsteps coming back downstairs. So Pierre had gone upstairs to grab a ballpoint pen. And at this point, Orren's kind of positioned on his side with one of his ears up in the air. Mm-hmm. And Pierre shoves the pen inside of Orren's exposed ear. And this next part just like reminded me of that horrific, terrible scene from American History X. Do you remember the scene where Derek like catches the men breaking into his car, and he takes them over to gunpoint and forces the one on the sidewalk and tells the man to bite the curb, and then like
curb
stomps his head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just visualize that. Get that in your head for a second. So Pierre basically does the same thing, but to the side of Orren's head.
Oh my God.
So he pulls his foot up and stomps down as hard as he can, right onto the pen that's sticking out of this guy's freaking ear.
Oh.
And so once isn't enough. He does it 3 times. So up, stomp, up, stomp.
I mean, did it just go in all the way? Like,
3rd time, it punctures through his ear and goes actually down into his throat.
Oh my God.
So Orren's kind of recalling later on that when he swallows, and again, I'm visual, so like just swallow kind of hard right now and see what happens to your ears, because when this guy swallows, the pen literally comes back out of his ear canal like a half an inch.
Okay, you keep saying he recalls. So does he live?
He does live. Yes. And I will get to that. But he lives through this hell. So,
I can't even. Can't even.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
So, yeah, literally, reading through this, I was just getting, chills, and I was just feeling, that pain in my ear, and I was just imagining, when you get a Q-tip in there a little too far, which, you shouldn't be cleaning your ears with Q-tips anyways, but when you get them in there a little too far and it, hurts, I cannot even imagine a freaking ballpoint pen going through your eardrum into your damn throat.
When someone's stomping it into your ear,
so brutal.
You couldn't have just taken your gun and put it closer to his head,
right? He wasn't out of bullets.
Come on.
Yeah. So finally satisfied that he didn't leave any witnesses alive, Pierre finally leaves, and the men pack up and go away. And a little while later, Orren's wife and other son, who, remember, also Stan's mom and brother, go looking for them when they still have not shown up.
Yeah.
And at this point, Orren is still alive, and he has kind of crawled up the stairs.
Oh my God.
Trying to get to a phone.
Yeah.
And so they find him and the grisly scene in the basement, and they call the police and the paramedics.
Yeah.
So Stan and Michelle are pronounced dead at the scene, while Carol and Courtney are taken to one hospital, and Orren is taken to another hospital. All three are still alive.
What?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, shortly after arriving at the hospital, Carol is pronounced dead.
Okay.
So she doesn't live very long after they get to the hospital. But Courtney is still alive, but he's in super bad shape. And he's not really expected to survive, but they take him to the ICU. And a lot of my information is coming from a book I read about this case called Victim, The Other Side of Murder. It's by Gary Kinder. And this book has a ton of the details about the medical side of the case and what happens in the hospital stay and all of that. So, of course, I was really interested in that, being in the medical field.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in that, definitely go read the book. But in the book, it talks about how when he first gets there, they're trying to get, even in the ER, they're trying to get a breathing tube down so that he can breathe.
Uh-huh.
And his airway is so inflamed, it's super difficult to get in. Once they get in, he just has copious amounts of pink, frothy sputum and liquid that just keeps coming up the tube. And the medical staff is trying to clear it so that they can bag him and give him some air.
Yeah.
But they can't clear it. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. And at this point, nobody has any idea what it is or what could be causing the fluid. All they know is that this kid came in with a gunshot to the head and then the blisters on his mouth, but they don't know what they're from. And they later find out that the liquid that Pierre and Andrews forced the victims to drink was freaking liquid Drano. So, the cleaner that is thought to clean any clog from your drains, that just eats through all that gunk in your drains.
Oh.
The two dumbasses got this bright idea after watching a movie that had recently come out called Magnum Force. And in the movie, there's a scene, and I, of course, went and watched it, but there's a scene where this prostitute is given Drano by her pimp for withholding money. And in the scene, they're in the back of a taxi cab, and he forces her mouth open, and she, he dumps the Drano down her throat, and she dies pretty instantly.
Yeah, because it's a movie.
Exactly. So do not believe everything you see in movies, people, because it did not happen that way.
Yeah.
So I also feel like we should just do a quick PSA or something because of the Tide Pod challenge.
Yes.
I have not had any of those recently, even though it sounds like I did. So, just like a PSA, please do not start a drink Drano challenge because it causes a very slow, painful death if it even kills you.
Yeah, chemicals. Don't drink them. It's not.
Yeah.
It's,
Please. So Courtney ends up spending like months in the hospital. They said 266 days.
Oh, jeez.
And he has to get brain surgery and go to rehab, and he almost dies several times.
Yeah.
He has to get his entire esophagus replaced at one point because it's just eaten through it.
You can do that?
Yeah, so they take like the top part of your bowel and like stretch it up.
What?
But your esophagus has that like contraction.
Yeah.
This doesn't have that, so it's basically just like an open tube that dumps stuff into your stomach. They do that with esophageal cancer too. Just fun fact.
Wow. So does it?
He just goes through hell.
Does it just go to your through? I'm so confused. So your food go through you super quick. I mean, it just reaches your stomach faster.
Mm-hmm. Well, so a lot of times they will remove part of the stomach too. I don't know what his was because it was so early on.
Right.
But yeah, they just make a new tube. It's just not the esophagus.
So you don't really swallow.
So you still swallow, but and in his, it talks in the book too how after he has the surgery, it keeps stricturing down. So he has to keep getting it dilated multiple times until eventually it doesn't do that anymore.
That's crazy. I didn't even know you could replace your esophagus.
Yeah, you can.
Well, good to know. In case I need another one.
Yeah. So, he ends up living, but he has severe amnesia and brain damage, and he's just never the same.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of want. Hopefully, he doesn't remember.
He doesn't. Well, so in the book, it talks about how right after he wakes up from the ICU, he tells his dad some details about what happened.
Okay.
And then he almost goes into a coma shock state.
Oh.
And then from there on, he doesn't remember anything. So I think he remembered initially, and then the trauma of it just came back and was too much, and he just shuts down.
Do you think he doesn't remember, or do you think he just chooses not to tell it?
I think when people suffer that amount of trauma, I think your brain has, it compartmentalizes it, and a lot of people do not remember that kind of stuff.
I mean, I know that, that part happens. I just find it interesting that he remembered for a second, and then...
I think he remembered, and then when he started talking about it, was
maybe that's when
I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
And I think his brain probably was just no.
Yeah.
We're going to go into protection mode.
Yeah.
And
so I almost feel like
it's anymore.
That's how I'd want it to be, I feel like.
Yeah, me too. For sure. So Orren, on the other hand, also lives through that absolute hell that he was put through, but he remembers everything.
Oh,
no
poor guy.
Amnesia, which actually helps in finding
I guess so,
suspects, because he's their main witness.
Yeah.
So he's just able to give all the gruesome details of the event, and he's able to describe both Pierre and Andrews in great detail, which leads to an all-out manhunt.
Oh, good.
So
I was going to say, I almost feel too, as an adult, I feel like you can handle stuff like that. Or maybe it's a parent. I don't know. Not that he, is devoid of any, severe trauma. But, in comparison to, a teenage kid,
Well, for sure. And at 16, your brain's not even developed yet. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. Mm-hmm. Because I have to think that as a parent, if I went through that and had to watch my son go through that, and then I lived and he didn't, I wouldn't want to remember that shit at all.
No.
Not even an ounce of it.
No, but if you, I guess, you can look at it from the well, I'm the only one who can find these people and get justice for, for my son and all of that. But
yeah, and he definitely thinks of it that way, because shortly after he got to the hospital, he's asking if he can describe, talk to the police to describe these guys.
Well, and I wonder too, the longer it goes, the less you might remember. So I got some shit I need to tell you.
Fresh in my mind.
Binge this out, before you start, because you never know. Maybe he would start losing memory and stuff too. So that was smart on his part.
Yeah. So the police start working on this case immediately, and they start to comb through all the known black criminals in the area because they have such a good description of both men from Orren. Mm-hmm. And they then get a tip from a local airman, yes, like somebody in the United States Air Force, saying that he knows of 2 men who fit the descriptions of the suspects, and that these 2 men have actually told them that they were going to rob the hi-fi shop and would kill anyone who got in their way.
Okay.
So, shortly after this tip, they kind of figure out their suspects, but they need some stuff to corroborate that, right? Because it's just a tip, so they can't go arrest somebody just on that.
For sure.
So shortly after this tip, 2 kids who frequently go dumpster diving to collect soda bottles and then turn around and sell them for money are dumpster diving on Hill Air Force Base and find a bunch of purses and wallets in the dumpster right outside some of the barracks. And so they immediately, which I don't know that I would even do this as a teenager, but they immediately think, like, this is a sign of a robbery. This isn't right.
Yeah.
And so they call the cops, and the police show up to go through the dumpsters. And a crowd of airmen starts to kind of form around the dumpsters, curious, like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So the police decide to kind of put on a little show while they're going through the dumpsters.
Yeah.
And they sort of grab each item individually and, like, wave it around to see if they can get a reaction from any of the airmen. And for the most part, everyone's really quiet, but there are 2 men that start pacing and acting really, really nervous. And want to take any guesses as to who that is?
I have no idea.
Yeah, so it's still Pierre and William Andrews.
Weird.
Yeah. So let me just let this sink in just a little bit. So these 2 assholes are in our freaking Air Force.
Yeah.
So it's shocking and appalling to me on so many levels. Like, 1, these are supposed to be people who protect us from threats and uphold the law.
Absolutely.
And they commit these terrible crimes. And number 2, did they not teach you how to shoot in the Air Force?
Right.
Like, literally, after shooting people in the back of the head, they still managed to leave 3 out of their 5 victims alive. And they tried to kill Orren literally 5 times and were unsuccessful.
Oh, they were obviously not the top in their class.
No, I mean, I'm glad that they didn't kill them.
Right,
but I was just shocked by that.
Yeah.
So Orren is able to pick the 2 from a mugshot album pretty quickly, and at that point they have enough evidence to take them into custody. And this literally happens the day after they commit the crime. So it's like fast.
Yeah.
So a little bit of background on these 2. Dale Pierre was 21 at the time of the incident and hadn't been in the Air Force for that long. He was originally from Trinidad and moved to New York with his family at age 17. And according to his teachers and people in his life that I could find, at least the interviews that they had done, it seemed like he had a pretty good life with great parents, like a stable living environment, a hardworking dad that tried to provide for his kids, like moved them to the States to give them more opportunity. But according to Pierre, he had a pretty strict home life and got beaten pretty often, which he said he would go months without a beating, and it was just kind of common back then. So he never blamed his parents or had like harsh feelings toward his parents, but he did say he got beaten pretty often. And during his trial, he even claims that because of a previous motorcycle accident, he has a history of seizures and struggles with memory loss, so he tried to use that as kind of an excuse.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is never proven after, like, tons of psychiatric and medical evaluation.
Yeah.
And they went back and combed through all of his records. He had never been in a motorcycle accident. The only accident he had been in that he was referring to was literally he fell off a regular bike while he was riding it. And he didn't even get a concussion. Like, it was so mild. And he just, like, exaggerated. He's like, no, it wasn't just my regular bike. I fell off a motorcycle.
It's like when little kids tell you a story. And it's, like, so ridiculous where you're like, it's not what's happening.
Yeah, I laughed so hard at that. I was like, he didn't even get a concussion.
He fell off a regular bike.
Like, he wasn't even driving that fast. He was, like, going slow, and, like, the bike tipped over, and he hit his head.
Was this as an adult?
No, this is as a child.
Oh, my God.
But he claims that that's what caused his, like, memory loss and
he has
seizures.
a traumatic brain injury from his bike tipping over as a child.
Yeah. If that's the case, I think we're all in trouble. So...
Oh my God, I don't think I can, like, I don't think I can function after that. Like, oh.
I know.
No.
So, he didn't really get into much trouble as a kid that was super serious, but he's always been a thief. And if he wanted something, he'd just, like, steal it.
Sorry if you hear any noises. My children feel like they have to have a snack out of the fridge. That's my daughter.
That's okay. She's sorry. He was always super awkward and, like, really cocky and didn't have many friends, but he would, like, very much exaggerate everything in his life.
It's interesting to be awkward and cocky.
Yeah, but he always...
Cockward. No. That did not come out. I was trying to make it a cool word. It did not.
Awkward.
It did not come out.
Oh my gosh, that is my new word. Forever and ever, I am keeping that because that was amazing.
And if you could have seen my face, I was really thinking in my head. It was really hard.
Like her eyes got all squinty.
Like I was really trying real hard, and that's what came out.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed.
Please excuse.
Okay. Where was I?
Sorry, he was cocky and awkward.
Oh, yeah.
He was cockward.
He was cockward. So, in his cockward youth, they described him as just being, like, boastful and saying, like, he was the best at everything. And he always said he was going to be rich and drive, like, fancy cars. And he just always envisioned his life, like, it was going to be this extravagant thing, but it just never panned out.
Which isn't a bad thing. Like, sure, have your vision board, but you don't have to, like, kill people to achieve that.
Or steal it. Like, you know, maybe you should make a plan on your vision board about how to manifest that and then work hard. But yeah, he didn't do any of that. He would just take what he wanted and then tell people it was his. So, in his adult life, though, he began getting into more and more trouble, and actually, he had just been arrested for car theft shortly before the event, and he was out on bail at the time, awaiting trial.
Oh, okay.
So let me just tell you how smart this guy is. If you haven't already figured this out, he is no genius. But even his lawyer made a statement about this that was like, what? Like, what was he thinking? So he would go test drive these super expensive cars. Because, you know, that was on his dream board.
Right.
Wearing his Air Force uniform. And I guess there's, like, certain bars for your level in the military.
Yeah.
And so that kind of tells you your rank. And he's, like, low man on the totem pole, right?
Right.
He just started. So people around the area kind of knew that he couldn't afford these cars, but he would be like, oh no, I can. So he'd go drive, like, super fancy sports cars that were way expensive.
Yeah.
Way out of his budget.
Yeah.
And he'd take them on a test drive, take them back to the shop, and then when the shop would close, he'd go back and steal the car, take it back to his base, and leave it there. And then the following day, he would return to the dealership and be like, okay, so where's that Ferrari I wanted to buy? And then when the dealership would be like, sir, actually it got stolen last night, he would, like, throw a tantrum and be like, well, that's the only car I wanted. That's the only one that's good enough for me. I'm not buying anything else. Like, seriously, throw a tantrum. So he did this to, like, 3 different cars.
Yeah.
And finally, one of the owners was like, this isn't adding up. So they called the cops, and then the cops found the stolen car on his base.
So what would he do with the other ones?
Oh, I think they found all of them. But he did it, like, 3 times.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you have to figure, like, if you're in the high-end car business, you probably know the other people in high-end car business, and, like, they might call the other places and be like, hey, we had this happen, like, look out for someone who might come and, like, test drive it, and then that car will be stolen, kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like, It's, like, I don't even understand what his logic was.
Well,
like,
and
if you're gonna steal it, just go steal it.
right. Well, like, people, I feel like, not that you should steal or do anything bad, but I always feel like these people, like, you give them an inch, they take a mile. Like, you do it the one time. Just be happy with that. Like, why do you gotta keep going back until you're caught? Like,
Yeah.
that's so stupid to me.
I know. I don't understand it. Never. But, like, literally nobody liked this guy, and he gave everyone the creeps, including his superior officers. And, like, a month before the crime, Pierre was also a prime suspect in the murder of Sergeant Edward Jefferson.
What?
Which I did not know this part.
Yeah.
So, Sergeant Jefferson was found dead at his apartment, and Jefferson and Pierre had hung out a few times right before his murder. And the two had been hanging out, and Jefferson's keys went missing. So Pierre was like, I'll help you look for them. So they combed through the apartment, couldn't find the keys. And then the next day, the keys mysteriously appeared, like, right there in his apartment. And Jefferson confronted Pierre, who denied taking them. But Jefferson just didn't trust this and reported his suspicion to the police on the base.
Mm-hmm.
And then he changed all of his locks on his car and his house because he was like, I bet this dude stole my keys, got them copied, and then is going to come steal my shit.
Yeah.
So, which was probably exactly what was going to happen.
Absolutely.
So, in some reports I read, they found out that that's exactly what he had done. And Pierre had signed, I can't remember the name, Charles something, but signed this name to get these keys copied.
Uh-huh.
And they ended up matching. So they brought Pierre in for questioning. And they had him sign the name just like it was on the receipt for the keys.
Uh-huh.
And it was exact. But they couldn't ever really, like, find enough evidence to link him.
Yeah.
But right after that happened, is when he was murdered. And how he was murdered was, like, absolutely brutal. He was stabbed multiple times in the face with a freaking bayonet.
Whoa!
A bayonet. And they said that the bayonet had been
the Revolutionary
stabbed,
War?
Right? That had been stabbed in so forcefully that the back side of his skull fractured. So that's how far it went, all the way through his face. And one of them went through his eye.
Oh.
So
that's a lot of, like, hate.
Yeah. A lot of hate. All because he couldn't steal shit.
Yeah. Because he wouldn't let you steal shit from him?
Yeah. And reported you. Like, had you not murdered him, what would they have done? You stole some keys. You hadn't stolen anything else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so bizarre to me. But anyway, so his superior officers were just getting ready to start his paperwork to dishonorably discharge.
I was going to say, like, why is he still there if, he's been a suspect of a murder and he's on bail for car theft? And
he's super just, like, disobedient and cocky to his superior officers, too.
Yeah.
So all of that, and they're trying to get him his discharge paperwork to go through. But as they're getting all this together, Pierre actually comes to them and says, hey, I don't think the military's for me. I want to get out of the Air Force. Which I didn't know that this was a thing, and I don't know if it's still a thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask my nephew.
Yeah.
But they said at the time, there was, like, this time frame where you had, and if you tried it out and didn't like it, wasn't for you, wasn't where you wanted to be.
They get you a 30-day trial.
Yeah, right? Like, so I didn't even know that was ever a thing.
No.
But he was still within that time frame. And so if he asked to be removed from the military, then it would be an honorable discharge.
Oh.
And so he's
like, I'm going to quit before you fire me.
Exactly. And they kind of struggled with this because they wanted him to be a dishonorable discharge.
Absolutely.
But if they did the honorable discharge paperwork and just let him leave, it would get him out of there, like, way faster, and they were just ready to get rid of this guy. So they agreed, but the paperwork hadn't gone through at the time of the incident, but it was happening. So Andrews was just 19 at the time of the incident. And he was from Jonesboro, Louisiana, and also hadn't been enlisted in the Air Force for very long. And everything that I could find on him says that before he met Pierre, he was like a good soldier, a good guy, didn't get into a lot of trouble. He was quiet, but had a lot of friends, and people genuinely seemed to like him.
Aww.
And he got into little things, like he was doing some drugs and drinking and a couple theft things, but like nothing big in his past. But once he started hanging out with Pierre, it made him more isolated because none of his other friends wanted to be around Pierre because everyone hated this guy. Yeah. So it made him so that he didn't have a lot of friends then, except for Pierre, so they just started hanging out more and more.
Weird.
His superior officers noticed a change in him, though, after he had been hanging around Pierre, and he was becoming more disobedient and disrespectful as well. And he actually also went in and said, the military is just not for me. I like to be discharged. So his paperwork was being processed at the time as well.
Okay.
So the trial for this heinous crime started on October 15th, 1974, and it actually had to be moved from Weber County to Davis County, and they had to move it to Farmington, Utah, because they couldn't find a jury that didn't know the Naisbitts.
Oh,
because Courtney's dad was like this prominent OBGYN.
Right.
And it was just kind of a smaller, Ogden's not a smaller community, but when you're a doctor, it kind of is.
Well, and it was the early 70s, so back then I'm sure it was pretty small.
Yeah, it wasn't like what I would consider like a small town. It was still one of the thriving places.
For sure, in Utah, yeah.
But, yeah, they couldn't find a jury and, like, all the people to do the trial that didn't have some sort of connection.
Yeah.
And, in fact, Pierre's lawyer that he had gotten for the car theft had to go to the jail and tell him, like, I can't be your lawyer anymore now because Dr. Naisbitt's my OBGYN. So she had to bow out. Yeah. So he had to actually go to Salt Lake to even get lawyers. Yeah. Because they couldn't find anybody locally.
Interesting.
So, at the trial, there were 66 witnesses and more than 300 exhibits of physical evidence. So, from what I could find, this was like people who had seen them in the van, parked outside of Hi-Fi. Yeah. At one point, they were walking along the street, like the busy street in front of Hi-Fi. So there was like all these witnesses that could place these guys at the crime.
Did you ever see where it was located? Because I don't know where the Hi-Fi shop was.
The address. It's 2323 Washington Boulevard.
Okay, so yeah, that is, one of the main thoroughfares there through Ogden.
Mm-hmm. And I think it always has been. So yeah, that was like a big shopping, like a strip right there. And then the parking lot was in the back of the buildings where he parked and then walked to the film shop.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So the police found that Andrews had gone to the Hi-Fi shop to price out equipment 2 days prior to the incident and had written down the information about the equipment and like price checked stuff. And so they found that list. He had also purchased the 1970s blue Chevy van that was used as one of the getaway vans. And Pierre had rented a storage unit earlier the same day of the crime.
Okay.
And the police had found, like, when they searched his barracks, they found the rental agreement to the storage shed, like, under the carpet in his barracks.
Oh.
So at least he was, like, smart enough to kind of hide it under the carpet.
I was going to say, I'm like, seriously? How many things are you going to have things are you going to do that obviously will tie you to this crime?
Mm-hmm. So in the storage unit, they found the Drano bottle, the plastic cup, which I'm like, why did they keep those? The freaking plastic cup? Yeah, or the Drano bottle. I don't know. Maybe in case they got a clog later. Like, I have no clue. And then, of course, all the high-end stereo equipment. all of which had Pierre and Andrew's fingerprints on them.
Right.
So the value of the equipment, though, was about $24,000.
Whoa.
But remember, there's 6 men. So when you split
Yeah.
that up, that's $4,000 a piece. Seriously?
Yeah.
That's worth that many people's lives?
Yeah.
$4,000 a piece.
When
and even in 1970s, that's not that much money.
No, and realistically, you could have just left them in the basement.
Right.
Had as minimal contact with them as possible, took them down, and they may not have even really remembered exactly what you looked like.
Wear a mask.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And just take them down there.
Do.
Right. Take them down, tie them up, do your thing, and leave. And you probably would have got away with it.
Yeah. It's so bizarre to me. And what I think happened is I think that they went and watched the Magnum Force movie, got this bright idea in their head, and they said that Pierre was kind of the mastermind of the plan, even though he didn't... Did I say Pierre? I meant Andrews.
Okay.
He was like the mastermind of the plan.
Really?
Even though he didn't carry it out. So he was like the brains, and then Pierre was like the brawn.
Weird.
I know.
Weird, because, I don't know. So, do they think he was, the one behind that wanted to do all the torturing, too?
No.
It
was just him. His idea was the Drano. Because he was like, listen, then we can just off the hostages. I think what happened is he probably got it in his mind it was going to be super easy and fast. Yeah. And you know how when you see movies and you're like, oh, that'd be so cool to do.
Right. When I first realized how hard it is to smother someone with a pillow. It's not because... Okay, well, first off, I've never done it to a completion in a murder. But when I was married many years ago, there was one time where me and my ex-husband Shane were I don't even know why we decided to just see because we talked about they always do it in the movies. It takes 30 seconds and people are dead, and so we tried it, and I was just I can still breathe. We're talking to each other through the pillow, and I was this takes a lot longer than it is portrayed in the TV shows.
What? This is to know what to say right now. One part of me is not surprised that you did that shit at all, and the other part of me is can I even claim you as my best friend?
It was purely just scientific.
Guys,
just
this is their foreplay, and I wonder why they're divorced now. I don't know. Weird.
Listen, to each his own. But I'm just saying that I did learn that would not ever be my style if I was gonna do it. Because I swear,
I thought I knew everything about you. I'm shocked right now. I don't even know what to say.
Oh, well, it's something that I did, and I learned a lot. That's all I have to say. I did a study, and it's not like it is in the movies. So
if you're gonna kill someone, don't smother them. No, it takes a lot of effort.
Or if anything, at least get a down pillow, one that's less airflow.
Okay, I'm gonna move on now.
Okay.
So they also found hi-fi shop labels in Andrew's bedroom in the garbage can.
Okay.
And then, of course, the guns.
Did they make shirts, too, that said, I committed the hi-fi murders?
Right, with, their pictures on them?
I committed the hi-fi murders, and I only got this lousy t-shirt.
And $4,000 that I didn't actually get to use or something.
How stupid are you? I'm glad they were so stupid. Honestly, very glad, but, I don't even...
I know.
Don't even know.
I know. Let's just throw the shit away right in my garbage can.
Yeah.
And then even the purses and the wallets, they dumped in their dumpster in their barracks all together.
Yeah.
What?
Have you not ever watched a, true crime show of any, sustenance? Because you would know.
Not. Because...
maybe in the 70s they didn't have as many, but...
No, because apparently they have pimps killing prostitutes with Drano, and they thought
and
that
it happens
that was
so fast.
So, what else can you do?
Clean and easy.
So, both defendants were found guilty on 3 counts of aggravated murder, 2 counts of aggravated robbery. on November 15th, 1974. I could not find anything that scumbag Pierre was charged with the rape of Michelle Ansley.
Yeah.
Which really pissed me off because I feel like this is a theme lately where these guys don't get shit for raping women.
Yeah. Well, and what about, like, all of the stuff that happened to Orren? Yeah. Like, all of the brutalizing to him and the attempted murder. I mean, because 3 counts of murder. So that would have been Stan, Michelle, and Carol, right?
Yes.
And so that left Orren and
Courtney.
Mm-hmm. And that should be, like, 2 more counts of attempted murder.
Right.
And then, like, whatever other charges are, like, aggravated assault or whatever. Yeah. And then, yeah, rape of...
And I mean, who knows? I might be missing something. But I went through everything that I could find. And even the book that I read on this.
That's crazy.
3 counts of aggravated murder, 2 counts of aggravated robbery. Yeah. So on November 20th, 1974, they were both sentenced to the death penalty for each of the murder counts. So they were sentenced to die 3 times.
Yeah.
And this actually caused a little bit of an uproar in our community because the men were both black and a lot of people didn't feel that Andrews deserved the death penalty and would have been more appropriate to get life imprisonment without parole. And that he only got handed that sentence due to his skin color.
Okay.
So both defendants made this part of their appeal process and asked for a retrial. There were reports that during the trial, there was even a handwritten note that was given to the jury that said, hang the N-word.
Oh.
And it was found in the jury area during a recess, and the judge saw it and refused a request for a mistrial. And
do they know where the note came from?
No. Nobody ever knows where it came from. But as soon as that happened, of course, their lawyers jumped on it and was like, this is absolute prejudice, and racism, and we declare a mistrial. And the judge was just like, nope. And then also refused the right to question the jurors concerning the note, and basically was like, no, it's not going to affect them. Which, I don't agree with that part.
Yeah, right? That's hard because, obviously...
that would never fly this day and age.
No.
Never.
And I'm sure, Utah is known to have, less per capita black people, right? Mm-hmm. That's just kind of how Utah is. I mean, I think a lot of the western states kind of are, our surrounding states are probably that way, but probably in the 70s was even worse.
We do not have a lot of diversity here.
No, we have a lot of Hispanic. We have a lot of Hispanic people here, but that's kind of our big diversity. So I can see that. I mean, in the area of Hill Air Force Base, there are a lot more black people because you have people coming from out of state. Mm-hmm. You have, military service members. But yeah, I mean, obviously I think they were 110% guilty and needed to, have some harsh penalties, but you can't you can't have people on your jury that are racist.
Right.
You just can't. That's just not okay.
Well, and a lot of people were like, okay, the most that he did, that Andrews did, was pour the liquid in the glass.
Yeah.
He didn't do any of the torture.
I guess he didn't do any of that.
He didn't put anything down anyone's throats. He tied people up and filled the cup with Adreno.
Yeah.
But then even when it came time to murder them, he, told Pierre, I don't think I can do it. And Pierre was like, okay, I got this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
true. Very
a part
true.
of me is I kind of agree with that. I think he probably shouldn't have got the death penalty.
Yeah.
Pierre absolutely should have got the death penalty. Yeah. But yeah, I don't really feel like Andrews, I don't think his punishment was deserved.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I can see that.
He was a big part of it, and he was the mastermind.
And he was there.
But I think life imprisonment without the possibility of parole probably would have been what he would have gotten now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when this happened, racial tension in Ogden was super, super high. And a lot of people said that after this happened, Cops would pull any vehicle they saw that was carrying 2 or more black men over for no reason.
Oh my gosh.
And, I mean, you can just imagine what it was like.
Yeah.
So, and I even put in my notes here, for those of you that don't live in Utah, I can absolutely believe this, because there's still a lot of racism here, even with the Hispanic population, which is just very, very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And back in the 70s, I'm positive that was like even way more.
Oh, yeah.
So the whole community at this point is just on edge and feeling unsafe, and then this adds to the tension.
Yeah.
But anywho, after exhausting all of their legal appeals and denied clemency, Pierre was executed by lethal injection, which initially, when he was sentenced, it was supposed to be by firing squad, and it later got changed to lethal injection.
Do they say why?
No, I couldn't find it anywhere.
I wonder, because I know you get to choose your form of execution. I wonder if he changed it.
Well, and I don't know when they got rid of the firing squad in Utah, so maybe that's what happened.
No. We had one, I want to say in the 2000s.
What?
Was our last execution by firing squad. I'll look it up while you finish talking.
Okay. I mean, maybe Pierre was like, I'm not that good of a shot, so maybe they don't want to die by firing squad in case someone shoots like me. But anyways, he did die by lethal injection on August 28th, 1987, at the age of 34.
Man. Oh, they were in, it took quite a while. That was Pierre.
Uh-huh.
So he was, was that 13 years
13
later?
13 years, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I found it. So this says, Ronnie Lee Gardner, which we will cover because he's a pretty big one. He died by firing squad in 2010.
Oh my gosh. Oh, in 2010.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So that was our,
2010.
I think that was our last.
That seems so brutal for 2010.
You know what? My thought on, because I do think that death penalty is a case by case, and it's not, it's a very gray area. I don't think it's fair to be like black or white with that. But I think every form, there's, I think 4 or 5 different forms of execution, and every state gets to decide what they'll allow. I think they should all be allowed, because if you're going to die and you get to choose, give them all the options. If they want to die by hanging, then I guess they just hang them. Why be? I don't think we should be no, that's too brutal. These people are on death row for being
if they want to
terrible.
That,
yeah, you choose it. It's not like they tell you
do it.
We're doing this. If that's how they want to die, why not?
Give them that last control.
Yeah, let them get electrocuted
a little bit. Let them have it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's my opinion, and sorry if that upsets people.
I completely agree with that. 1,000%.
You're choosing it, so.
Yeah. So at the time of Pierre's death, he had $29 to his name, and he left it to his good friend Andrews.
Oh.
Pierre declined his last meal, instead spending his final day fasting, praying, singing hymns, and reading the Bible.
Okay. Yeah, because you're going to die now to face the big man for what you've done, or whoever you believe in, and some shit's getting real.
Another one of our trending things.
Yeah, yep.
His last words were, "Thank you, I'm just going to say my prayers." And right before he died, he said, "I'll be glad when this is over." Well, we concur with you, Pierre. We're so glad that it is over.
Ditto.
So Andrews was executed also by lethal injection on July 30th, 1992, at the age of 37, which is 18 years on death row. His last meal was a banana split, and his last words were, thank those who tried so hard to keep me alive. I hope they continue to fight for equal justice after I'm gone. Tell my family goodbye, and I love them. Andrews reportedly found God and became very religious on death row.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they all?
Mm-hmm. He was said to have found peace and was even cheerful before he died. One witness reported that Andrews' arms and legs were strapped down to the gurney, but he could still move his head freely. And his head kept coming up, smiling, as he would blow kisses and mouth the words, "I love you," to his 2 aunts who raised him.
Oh.
And the witness was like, it was just quite eerie.
Yeah, that's I don't know. It is kind of super eerie.
Yeah. Keith Roberts, who we haven't really talked about, I didn't really go much into him, but he was the third man who was actually on trial for this, but he was only tried he was only convicted of robbery. He was one of the men in the van that was just sitting in the van the whole time as the getaway and had nothing to do with the murders or the tortures of the victims. And he was sentenced to 5 years to life and was paroled in 1987. And the other 3 men involved in the robbery were never identified and never prosecuted.
Oh, I was just going to ask that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Keith Roberts died by suicide on August 8th, 1992, barely a week after Andrews' execution.
Oh.
So, Michelle Ansley was just 18 years old when she died, and she was recently engaged to be married.
Aww.
Their wedding date was set in August of 1974. She was said to be a beautiful and bubbly girl with a lot of spunk and personality. And Stan Walker was 20 years old when he died. He was very active in his church, outgoing, very friendly. He was really involved in his community and was also a basketball coach.
Oh.
Carol Naisbitt.
I've kept it together.
Yep. Was a wife and a doting mother of 4. She was very active and involved in her church as well. And she loved fashion and home design. And I guess, like, in the book, it describes how she designed 2 houses for her family and basically, like, worked as a contractor.
Aww.
And then hired subcontractors and, like, was just there every single day.
Yeah.
Just supervising.
How fun.
Yeah. Orren Walker was 43 at the time of the incident. He was able to recover from all of his injuries. He was a loving father and husband and died at the age of 70. I could not find a cause of death, so I don't know what happened with him. He was very active in his church and held on to the thought of God had a plan for him.
Oh.
Courtney loved science and flying planes. He had a bright future and was just 16 years old at the time of the incident. He ended up attending college but was never able to fly again and struggled a lot in his life. His father said he was just never the same after the incident.
Yeah.
He actually only lived until 44, and then he died, and all it said was a long battle with illness, and he just struggled immensely after all of his injuries.
Yeah.
He had issues moving his right arm, and I guess he had to like kind of keep it kind of folded up. And he struggled with memory. He had to speak really slowly.
Yeah.
And he went back and tried to fly planes a couple of times, but he just couldn't remember how to fly.
Oh, sad.
And then his reflexes were just so debilitated and slow that he just stopped going, even though his instructors were like, we can get you back. Like, we'll help you, or we'll take you up, or whatever we need to do. But they said that sometimes they would see him just sitting at the airport, just watching the planes take off and land. I know.
Oh, that's awful.
I know.
So sad. Can you imagine being his brother, the one that asked him to stop by to pick up those pictures?
No.
And it caused, like, the death of your... I mean, he didn't cause it, but, like, had he not asked that, like, your brother and your mom, like, being affected like that, that'd be so terrible.
Gary, if you're still out there, it was not your fault.
No. No one can ever... I mean, that's, like, you know, so, like, far away from anyone's thought. It's like, you know, you can't ever predict that. But survivor's guilt is a real thing. And I just feel that'd be so terrible.
I know, I can't even imagine.
And then, you know, like, for Courtney to, like, be so, like, have this promising life ahead of you and then, like, have such severe... I mean... You know, my 5-year-old wants to be a Ghostbuster, like, not a aerospace engineer, you know, so, like, it sounds like from a very young age, she was, like, just motivated and, you know.
And in the book, it talks about, oh my gosh, this literally broke my heart. It talks about how, after, like, months in the hospital, he finally was like, where's Mom? Like, why isn't she seeing me the whole time?
He didn't even know.
And they... didn't want to overwhelm him.
Yeah.
So they just kept telling him that she couldn't come. And they finally break it to him. And then when he goes home, he keeps, like, he'll, like, go back to the ICU because all the older nurses were so nice to him.
Aww.
And he'll, like, go sit next to the older nurses and, like, put his head on their shoulder and just, like, talk to them because he just wanted a mother.
Yeah.
And then at one point, he, like, tells his dad he's gonna go leave their family and try and get himself adopted so he can be in a family with a mom.
Oh, my God.
Like, he just wants a mom. Oh, I know. I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean, she must have been a great mom.
Yeah.
I mean, we both, both of our moms have passed, and even through, like, all of their issues and whatever, it's like there still are times as an adult that, like, you just, miss, like, having a mom.
Yeah.
So that's just, and I can't imagine losing that as, like, a kid.
No.
Like a kid, a child where you're still, like, being taken care of by your parent. Like, you're still, living in their household and they're still really taking care of you.
And, like, moms and sons
have
such, like, a special bond.
Yeah.
I don't really have, like, biological daughters. But I don't know what that is. You have both.
I do, and it's a real thing. Like, it really is. My daughter could have cared less if I lived or died when she was a baby. She was all about her dad, all about him for a few years, and now that she's older, we're much closer and she's a great kid and everything, but, like, I can still see the relationship, like, with her and her dad. Like, she's super comfortable talking to him about anything, and, like, they just have this super cool relationship that I think is fun for me to watch. But having my son, it's so different, and we're just, he tells me I'm his bestie, and, like, it is so different. It's just a different relationship. So I can't even imagine, like, I can't. It's so sad.
I know. And, like, being there and, like, witnessing it, and
no.
Nope.
And, I, going back to, like, the murderers, I do feel, I feel a little soft spot for Andrews, that, like, maybe he should not have been executed.
Yeah.
And, and I'm not a proponent for, like, everything being race related. I think right now we've kind of gone from one side to the other, where, like, now everything has to be, like, tied to race, and I don't think everything is. But in the 70s in, Utah, which is considered a fairly small state, and then, Ogden, while it's one of our big cities, is very small town in comparison to a lot of other states' big cities.
Yeah.
I think it probably did play into that a little bit, which is super unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, he needed to be, I think if you're going to be there and be, like, even if you're just watching a murder, like, you deserve a pretty harsh punishment, but maybe not death on that one. So, that was a good one. There was stuff that I knew had happened, but I didn't know, like, the details. So it was a good one to listen to. Yeah.
Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. It's kind of, I know this has gone a little bit long, but it's
no, it's a good.
I felt like we needed to cover a lot of the details, and
I mean, just being little old Utah, we still have some pretty big cases that have happened here, so it's fun to kind of relive them. Not fun in that people were murdered and all of that, but I like to listen. Obviously we do a true crime podcast because we like true crime.
Yeah. So
I hope you guys all like listening to it. I hope you continue to come back.
Yes, please come back.
It will get better every week, I promise. And if you would like to contact us, you can find us on Instagram at
Sinners Among Saints Podcast.
You can find us on Facebook at
Sinners Among Saints Podcast.
And you can send us an email at
sinnersamongsaintspodcast@gmail.com.
Yep, and we hope you keep coming back and hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.